James Harris. I'm a retired Anglican priest and former rector of Gemma's grandmother's congregation, where she lived before she died. That's how I met Gemma.
And my granny described him as she found a lot of peace in his sermons, and he accepts the LGBT crowd. He has no problem. Love is love. And I really appreciate his way of going about his religion. What was your opinion of the Leonardo Da Vinci atomic universal man? Man is the center of the universe. It's a bit extra.
Well, at one level, we were the
on one level, yes.
the epitome of the divine creation, according to the biblical narratives. So everything else came, and then humanity was...
What particularly do you think takes us off the divine path?
What takes off? Or
what makes us straight? I think maybe it's not even like that. I think you're always on a churning of fate.
Yeah, but I mean, who owns ultimately? I mean, what is real estate? You live in it for a while and it goes, a bomb could come and everything that we see, the beauty of what we see around us in this little valley, for instance, it doesn't take much to obliterate it. You asked a question earlier on about, what is the kind of characterized divine spark, if you like. For me, creativity.
I always said that if God was real, then he is just the creator. And when you're creating, you're always trying to connect to God, such as Michelangelo, such as my friend Kuda. They find that when they're being creative, they're working with the hand of God. But I believe that there is a higher power than that, and that is love. I don't feel like God is love, because God is chaos, God is mania, God is just creation.
Well, that's obviously if you denote God as either the end result of something that was, or as an expression of what you see. I mean, as a Christian, as a theologian, and as a philosopher, everything that I believe in is rooted in the persona of God, or the divine character.
Would you say it's even meta?
Well, obviously God must be meta. Otherwise we would be gods, if you like. You see,
I did go through a phase where I did think that everyone was a god to their own life, own mind, in a sense that they can be in control of, if they can self-alchemize their own minds, they're able to control the way their life can unfold a lot better.
Well, that's an interesting observation, because I think in part we do, in part we don't. I mean, earlier on you were saying, what you see in the world is chaos. Yet we have everything available to us to create utopia. And of course, way back, even as far back as the Middle Ages, people were talking about utopia. People wrote about
always
a utopia that's possible. But I think even those who wrote with such optimistic ideas realized that there is something built into humanity that gets you so far toward the utopian reality that it just breaks down. And so you start again, slightly different, slightly more nuanced, building on what was, venturing out, developing. And so it becomes incremental. So if you look back, as we all have to, both philosophically or even take the history of art, you go back as far as you can to look at the earliest artists. How did they express themselves? Why did they express themselves in the particular way that they did? And how has it developed incrementally, changed, similarities, radical differences, determination to stay the same, and all of those variations on the theme.
There was this, my idea was that, let's say the writer writes the story. They are, every aspect, every word is them. And some people even go as far as to say, even if I'm over here and those viewers are over here, that we are still connected.
Yeah.
They say that you could even, one atom from across the universe can affect another.
Yeah, look, I don't know enough about science to argue one way or the other. But
it's
the principle of connectivity, I think, cannot be denied, because isn't it interesting? You can meet somebody, and in your conversation, just on general things, you start to find either areas of intellectual or creative or human identification. And in some rare cases, you might even find that you know people who know other people that you know. And so in a way that you never anticipated, you could find that someone you know who knows somebody else on the other side of the world knows somebody else that knows you. And so even though you don't know this person or that person, the links comes back and someone somewhere, and that's why we say, wow, isn't it a small world?
Yeah, now Facebook, they're wanting to delete it or put it into a subscription, and I'm like, you can't delete it, that's for sure, because it is a hive mind. It's a connection pool. Why would people want that gone?
Yeah. Look, I mean, it can go too far where you might, for some reason, put stuff onto things like, a medium like Facebook, and it goes viral, as they say, and you can either get a lot of good hits or a lot of bad hits. And so you've got to make up your mind, do you go with the good, or do you try and curtail and eradicate the bad, whatever that might be?
I said to someone recently, and it came from one YouTuber, cynical dude, it's a silly channel, but he said that shame is a good thing and it should be internalized so that you can change.
Interesting observation. What was the source of that?
That was it was just, he's one of those there's a whole movement called the fat acceptance movement, where they're trying to say being every size is okay, and he's like and then they're like trying to be shameless about their life, about getting 2 dinners and stuff, and he's like, no, shame is good, it will help you change.
Well, I think given the illustration, and you could think of many parallels about actions and attitudes that can be destructive. So, we must make it clear, thinking in a particular way or acting in a particular way can, depending on the circumstances, have either a positive or a negative.
That's where I find addictions do just cross the line on your spiritual path. Addictions take you away from the goal, if you will. I don't find that any addiction has proven to be a decent addiction.
No, I mean, the very nature of addiction is problematical.
And that there's so much shame associated with it that they can't change. And therefore, what does it do to a person?
Well, I think, again, you've got to ask some hard questions on that particular context. Do people want to change? I mean, I have met people in my life and particularly in my work where many have said, look, I'm not too sure if I really want to change, even though they recognize perhaps the necessity to change. And you don't need to have any specific issue, but anything, let's generalize and say an addiction is something that's destructive. So it could be a relationship, it could be hard drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be any number of things, even food, as you gave the illustration there. So whatever is destructive, you need to face it. Do you want to change? And look, why do we use the term comfort food?
And sometimes you've got to respect each other just as much. So
well, all these terms have different nuances, but I think the point that you've just made about in dealing with everybody, not just about, say, equality or gender sensitivity or poverty, wealth, all those elements. The fundamental outcome of creativity, for instance, must be respect, because the creative mind recognizes kindred spirits being creative at a wide range of features. And so respect has to be a basic outcome, because otherwise the one creative spirit is, in a sense, saying my creative spirit is better than somebody else's. And most of the creative people I know, whether they be poets or artists or theologians or accountants or builders or whatever manifestation of the creativity is, there is a sense of, I respect the unique characterizing of your creative, generative spirit.
Would you say there's like one creative person that's not hungry for knowledge? Hungry for more, learning more? I find that the fact that a person is a creative means that they have the opportunity to research as many topics as they can and be the bridge.
Sure. Look, I've met some like that. I can't say I've met a lot of people.
Some of it, I just find that world peace comes from cross culture and maybe even cross religion. Like Nelson Mandela found peace within Islam. Christianity found a lot of peace within Buddhism. And wherever these roads cross is coming into a very beautiful thing.
Sure. If you have the openness of mind to engage rather than to keep at arm's length. And I think the genius of that area of creativity, of saying, how can we better the world through whatever medium we find ourselves working in as creatives, whether it's religion, philosophy, education, art, or whatever the case might be. The people involved, I think, need to have open minds. That's not always easy when some of the dogmas or theories behind some of those creative ideas are so aggressively assertive. So we have to learn, and it comes sometimes with the interaction, sometimes comes with age, and comes with any number of interactions. But if you can be open without a sense of loss of your own conviction.
Yeah, I find that I had a recent argument with a friend about this whole billionaire thing, and I was like, I don't like billionaires, and they were like, you're just being jealous and shallow about their girlfriend.
How many do you actually know?
I don't know many billionaires. But I was like, there shouldn't be one, and they call me jealous about that, but it's just,
Look, while you're getting your thought, the reason I asked how many billionaires do you know is because so often we make a comment or an observation like you've just done, but if we know a billionaire, it's only then that you can make a judgment about a billionaire that is meaningful.
People that
you
have
might know
gotten close,
very, very
close.
Good, very generous.
Not good thing.
Okay, in your experience, it might not be. I know. I've come across many people who I would argue might not be billionaires because I don't know the fine detail, but I know they are very, very wealthy in a more general sense, outside of being far wealthier than I am. But then, most people are wealthier than me. But that's fine. I'm satisfied with what I've got.
Ways.
But some of those wealthy people have surprised me at their generosity.
Definitely.
Now, you could easily say, well, it's out of their wealth that they are generous.
But there is a difference between that overlord and a wealthy person.
Well, that's the abuse, isn't it?
It's a horrible
gift.
We all got to point fingers at private businesses, and it's not the case. It's really these people that own Apple, almost like paying their workers little, and yet the Nike is like, this one guy gets paid more than like a whole factory of workers gets in a year. He's like, no.
Sure. Well, I mean, those issues from a general kind of from a generalizing point, yes, I think it's probably legitimate to be able to say, in a general sense, it is immoral for one person to earn more than X.
Because it's just like they can manipulate the market.
Of course,
and it just snowballs out of control. There's a limitless bank account right now. It's like, oh.
But you see, what I'm trying to get across is, for me as someone who is or I think of myself as a creative person within a fairly narrow field of, theology, philosophy, and things of that nature. And I have an appreciation of art and human interaction, because I think there is something very special of the creativity of engagement with one another. I mean, some people can't put two words together, but they would be the deepest and best of friends if you're in a need.
Yeah.
Someone who's articulate and could express all sorts of things.
It's about proving it. A lot about it is about
But
proof.
when the chips are down,
Proof's
they
in
might
the pudding.
not they might be careless about somebody and others, So for me, I would want to be aware as both a human being, as a theologian, as a Christian, as a creative, of being too judgmental in my generalization.
You can't be like the philosopher that uses a sword. You can't be like Shaka Zulu and be like, I'll be the hand that strikes thee down.
Well, that's it. I mean, that raises the issue of, is violence creative?
Oh.
So
it's destruction.
Your point made earlier on about the creatives are given, or you didn't put it quite this way, but this is how I interpret it. Creatives are given the mandate to make life meaningful in such a way that hopefully can bring harmony, if not a wider level of collaboration, peaceful living, appreciation, respect for each other. And if we are able to build communities
definitely.
with all of these things we've been talking about, if we're able to start with a small community and build and widen the circle. And
that's when I was traveling alone in South America without a phone for like a year. I had no money on me multiple times because my wallet got stolen, whatever. I'd be having a bag of groceries, and I'd make sure that whoever I'd be next to, I'd give them some food, they'd give me back some food, and they'd be able to look after my stuff for me as well. That's a starting community. By the end of that time, we had a whole group, had a really nice meal. Before I left, I made them all some pasta. It was good. And I just felt that when you plant a seed, it matters so much for people, especially when you care about the person. They are able to plant a big seed.
Sure.
So you can't underestimate your power in people that care about you.
Yeah. But equally, you see, again, picking up some of the strands we've talked about already, we are living in a world that at the present time is not utopian. Your experience in South America, obviously, included some really good creative moments like the one you've just related. But I'm sure you could tell stories where you were afraid of your life, you had your wallet stolen, what am I going to do, how am I going to live, how am I going to do this, that, the other. Others might have had even worse experiences. So you've got to be realistic about the fact that as much as we want to sow the seeds of love, of respect, of creativity, of generosity, of human embrace, there will be always those who, one, would reject it out of hand,
or walk over it,
or deliberately try to stymie that and bring a destructive mindset simply because they're so damaged. And this is something that we have to take seriously.
I only make a wish that, I had mentioned it today to someone else, but I wish that someone in prison could find what we know and find that love and light from within and be free in that jail cell and be able to love their brother, love the earth. And it's just, that would change so much. But the prison system is a bit brutal, a bit forceful.
It is, but we also have to...
It's punishment, but it's not... If you're not killing them in a death penalty, then why don't you give them a chance to live?
Well, there are structures. I mean, the whole restorative justice principle does come into play. But as I said a moment ago, in all of these kinds of conversations, we need, yes, to look at the system, the institution, the theories behind all these systems, but we also need to look at the circumstances that damaged the individual. Is there some way that those circumstances can be changed or fixed, then we can
Creatives.
start working on the individual.
I met a creative yesterday even who's put on a play about child trafficking.
Okay.
Who's for awareness. Those kind of things is another point
Yeah.
where creatives
Awareness,
are perfect.
I mean, that's a
Awareness
great...
is so important.
Yeah.
People be like, why are you telling me this, Gemma? La 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 la. I'm like, awareness is key. We need to know what's happening in the world. I mean, you watch the news and you don't want to hear me right now. That's no. Listen, come back here.
Yeah. And then you see, that raises another interesting question. Why is it that so many people get to a stage where they say, I don't read the newspapers, I don't watch the news, I'll watch soapies or go to the news, but don't talk to me about politics or community issues or someone who's died or someone who's committed suicide or someone who's put in prison.
You can only do what you can.
I don't want to hear about that because it's too traumatizing. Now, with all due respect, one, you have to listen to someone because clearly something has happened that has made them to the point where all they want to do is be isolated and live in their own bubble. At the same time, by listening to them, maybe we can ask key questions to be able to fathom, get them to articulate why they feel that.
So get awareness even for their side, you know.
That's it.
Care for everyone.
So part of this discussion needs to include, it seems to me, and you as particularly as a young person, surely you need to learn to ask the questions. I mean, certainly as an older person, either I think I've got all the answers because of my longevity,
I just say things
and you don't have
am
the
I right?
answers.
Am I right?
But also people look and say, well, you're an older, you've been around a long time, have you got the answers? We have to say, I don't have all the answers.
You as a vicar would be like that as well because no one really knows the afterlife truly. It's one of the biggest mysteries we all have to go down.
And I mean, look, this is not new and it's not unique.
Yeah.
I mean, Socrates said that. And when was he around? 300 something BCE?
No. Socrates, if he was alive now, he would be a bit overwhelmed.
Well, I think he'd be doing the same thing.
He'd probably be in a hospital.
He'd be going around talking to whomsoever is willing to talk to him.
Yeah.
And he would be asking them the questions. And he would keep on asking, and he'd find a way to keep on asking what I would call the right answer to elicit the best understanding of what that other person was on about, if you like.
Yeah. No, there's so much pain in Cape Town, and the people are tough as nails. They're certainly very creative, but I find I just got angry at Christianity at one point because the Bible drove so many people up the wall as well with the drugs. A little bit of drugs and the Bible, someone goes straight to the planet Mars.
Well, it depends on how you read the Bible, obviously. You can read the Bible in so many different ways.
But they need to have someone to mediate, someone like you that goes to the prisons and actually will able to help them with the Bible because they don't know how to read it properly.
Lots of people who made that their life's work and they're doing an amazing
job. And I really pray for the people in prisons because you know they're the if they can fix their problems, this world would be a better place.
Well, I mean, I think ultimately this is what theologians and pastors and priests and gurus and artists.
Pray to prevent that for our own kids, and it's too late for them. It's just
you know, I don't think
not too late in this. It's never
there
too
is
late.
ever anything is too late until actually they've gone.
Yeah.
Then it is too late. But I mean, whilst we're alive, and I think this comes back to the openness thing. If we can recognize that I can only do so much, you can only do so much. But if there's a sense in which we are working together, we might not know each other, but there's a sense in which, what's our objective?
Yeah.
We want to bring a sense of meaning and purpose.
Oh, that's what I was saying
to those,
earlier.
To those we are engaging with. We don't know all the ins and outs.
Yeah, I had this argument about, I was saying earlier about the argument about the billionaire thing. It's just that he turned that argument into something personal. And it's nothing to do with us, really. It's something in another country, out of our realm. You just don't make it personal. Like, you're supposed to here, like, instead of saying do your research, it's like, what do you know? You just, it's
I read an interesting observation once by some big business leader. I can't remember what the context was. He was probably an American or a Brit, because they're the ones who've written quite a wide and diverse range of books on leadership and business and whatever. And he said, the best businesses are those who are committed to giving the best product and the best service possible.
Yeah.
Yes, we might make a lot of money, but this is this guy's picture, of course, and his vision. First and foremost, good product, good service. Why? Because you want those people, let's say you
Coca-Cola, it's tasty
or
and it's served
let's
everywhere.
something
BMW.
practical like a pair of shoes. We want somebody to say, these were the best shoes I have ever bought. They were well made, they were comfortable, they last a long time, and in fact they were very reasonably
It was worth
priced.
their time to make.
And therefore, going backwards, the people who made them obviously knew what they were doing. They wanted to make a good product, and they wanted a product that would last, not necessarily just to say, well, I'm making it in such a way that it'll last 6 months or a year.
Yeah, that's an actual thing, isn't it? Called or it starts with an O.
I've no idea.
Planned obsolescence.
Oh, planned obsolescence. Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting. I would imagine that would be evident in a number of commodities.
Well, I always said with business there was a little rhyme: monopoly, oligopoly, and misogyny.
What's the second one?
Well, oligopoly is when you are keeping the market to a small group of people. Oligopoly. Monopoly is taking over the market.
Okay.
Oligopoly is keeping it to a small group, and then
Okay.
misogyny is just taking it for the men.
Okay.
It's awful rhyme. What a lovely. My granny would be like, lovely, Gemma.
Where does that leave the
Chop.
women who are leaders in business, albeit few of them?
We are not put in presidential spots, and my opinion is there's PMSing. There's the menstrual cycle. They're not going to let a woman run because of that. Tell me I'm wrong.
I'm not going down that road. I'm not doing
Don't do that to me.
Okay, there you are.
That was a brilliant
That
talk.
was my 6 pennyworth for you.
Thank you so much.
That's all. Thank you for asking.
Bye everyone. I'm glad to have for the
Cheers.
creative philosophy.